What's good, y'all? It's Stuart V. Once again with Venom Sports, and you know we spit that fire. All right, look, we're in week 5 of the college football season, and we're starting to get some answers on some teams that, we probably will continue to get some information down the stretch as the season progresses. And right now it's week 5, you know what I'm saying? And now things are starting to solidify itself. Teams are starting to emerge as either contenders or pretenders. I think it's a little still kind of too early to tell because right now teams haven't, reached that meat of the conference play. But what about Miami last night? I think Miami did an incredible thing in, bringing on they replaced their quarterback Rozier, and I think I'm not saying that the quarterback necessarily made the difference. But when you bring on a new quarterback, you're looking for a spark. You're looking for a response, and it seemed like the team responded very well to the new quarterback coming in for Miami. Now, today we're going to talk more so about the Auburn Tigers. Auburn finds itself in a very uniquely awkward position because they're the number 10 team in the country, but there's still some answers. Some questions that need to be answered coming into week 5 as they take on Conference USA opponent Southern Miss. So what are those questions that need to be answered? Obviously, I think the defense for Auburn is all but solidified. They only allow 12.5 yards. I mean, not 12.5 yards, but 12.5 points per game, which is more than enough for a championship defense, which is more than solid for a championship defense. But what Auburn is looking for now is they're looking for some offense. They're looking for some continuity on offense. And when I think about where this team offensively, it leads me back to the first week of the season against Washington. They appeared to be very balanced between the 20s. From 20 to 20, they were the most balanced team in the country. They could throw the ball, they could run the ball, and then when you get into the 20s, that's when things started to get a little shaky for the Auburn Tigers. But after the Washington game, things just got really questionable. Left the fan base scratching his head. I mean, when you think about the Alabama State game, although they basically utilized their talent to beat Alabama State 63-9. They pretty much dominated the LSU game, but then became malignant late in the game to where they couldn't score. And then on defense, they had a series of penalties that were damning to them. And then against Arkansas, it's like, man, Arkansas is like the worst team in the country, especially when you think about Power 5 football teams. Auburn still struggled to produce offensively. And that left many people scratching their heads like, man, what the hell is going on the Plains, right? So they still managed to win that game 34-3 on the efforts of a great defensive display, on a great special team display that we haven't seen at Auburn in quite some time. But now that we've reached week 5, and we have, Auburn has Mississippi State waiting in the Wims in a couple of weeks, and that's a game that they're going to have to play in Starkville. And it's like, man, what is going on? You have what was thought to be a Heisman caliber quarterback that is just malignant at best. He's missing open receivers. He's getting sacked. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, this is the crossroad for the Auburn Tigers, to figure out what they're going to do offensively. Now, what I really liked in the Washington game is they had that downfield throwing game, which featured the now departed Nate Craig Myers. He caught a big pass in that Washington game. I think another thing you have to do, you got to utilize Ryan Davis and Darius Slayton. Those guys have been very quiet. And Schwartz, the freshman, the world-class track star, who's gotten some touches and has really made some impact on Auburn's offense. But really the thing is, they got to find a rhythm. They have to find that rhythm that makes this Gus Malzahn offense go. Will they find it this week against Southern Miss? They absolutely have to. They're going into a game with Southern Miss where Southern Miss will be largely undersized. They should have the advantage from a talent recruiting standpoint. They have to control the line of scrimmage to where there's no doubt where this Auburn offense is going. I think the tools are still there, just like they were at the beginning of the season. The tools are still there. Jarrett Stidham, check. Great quarterback, check, right? Ryan Davis, get this man the football. He wants it. And when he gets the football, he makes incredible things happen. Get him the football. Why write Cam Martin off? When things are clicking, Cam Martin can bust you for about 9 or 15 yards. You know, Boobie Whitlow from Lafayette, Alabama, and I emphasize Lafayette, Alabama because I'm from that area, and it's always good to see people from that area, Tuskegee and the East Alabama area, who can really emerge as stars on these types of football teams because, you know, the school that Boobie Whitlow went to was a school that I played against. I went to a 1A school. I was a all-state linebacker at a 1A school in Notasulga, Alabama, and we played against Lafayette. So that hits close to home for me. To see a guy that's running over SEC talent in these particular football games, you have to find some kind of continuity for the Auburn Tigers at this point. There's no question. I think Auburn has one of the better defenses in the country. Their secondary is starting to develop and is starting to emerge. There were no pass interference calls in this last game, no costly penalties in this game. As a matter of fact, the defense were the stars in this past game. All Auburn needs at this point is an offense, and I think this is the week that they start to solidify themselves as a solid offense in the SEC conference. I think Auburn has the capability, to be a very good team in the SEC West, but they have to figure out where they're going to go continuity-wise in this conference because the tools are definitely there. You got an experienced quarterback due for over 3,000 yards last year. Had his best games against Georgia and Alabama in the regular season. Both of those teams, by the way, were number one respectively, and you took them down, right? So what is the problem? Okay, some blame the offensive line, some blame Jarrett Stidham, some blame the running backs, but it all goes back to strategy. I think the strategy that Auburn had against Washington was absolutely phenomenal. The only thing that they didn't do is they didn't score in the red zone. Get back to that strategy where you're throwing the football down the field, the slant routes. Okay, you say your offense is kind of malignant. Start throwing some quick routes to get these guys, to where you neutralize that defense to where their defensive line is not quite as effective. Ryan Davis and Darius Slayton, they provide that quick slant possibility. They provide that downfield capability in a particular game like this against Southern Miss. So when I look at Southern Miss and I think about Auburn and where Auburn is, I don't think this is a team, Auburn, that you need to write off just yet because they have all the tools that they need to make an incredible run in the SEC and possibly contend for a playoff spot. Here's what you got to do. You have to start with the pass. I think that's your advantage at this point. You have experience at the receiver. Darius Slayton and Ryan Davis have big game experience to where they made big plays in those Alabama and Georgia games last year. Feed off of those experiences, right? Boobie Whitlow. When the running game, when the passing game got going against Washington, you saw the running game start to solidify itself. Refer back to that. I actually watched film on the Auburn and Washington game today, and I was kind of encouraged. I was like, these guys are really good. So refer back to that. Keep this thing simple. Go back to what you're successful at, and I think the downfield passing with Ryan Davis and Darius Slayton will open up the running game for these Auburn Tigers. And man, this defense is absolutely phenomenal. They only allow 12.5 points per game, including only 16 points to a very high-powered Washington offense, 22 points against LSU. So the defense is not necessarily the problem. So where do I see this game going? Obviously, I think Auburn wins the game. That's the obvious thing. But just like last week, what do you accomplish? What do you accomplish? What is your progression going to be between this game and that pivotal game you got in Starkville next week? Although, Mississippi State failed to Kentucky, still a good football team, a very physical football team. If you let their run pass option get going, you can obviously find yourself in a lot of trouble. So here we are, Auburn, Southern Miss. Here's how I think this thing will go. I think they will revert back to some of the successes that they had against Washington. That Washington game led me to believe that Auburn was a solid top 10 team in the country, that they have potential to have balance on both the offense and the defense is solid, man. I mean, let's just face it. They're solid. Great linebacker play, great defensive line play. So when I look at this game against Southern Miss, you're looking at a 45 to 7, maybe 45 to 14 game. But what I want to see is more solidification of the offense. Get the ball in Ryan Davis's hands. Get the ball in Darius Slayton's hands. Get Boobie Whitlow comfortable, because it appears that the coaching staff wants Boobie Whitlow to be the running back that leads this team. And just keep it moving from there. I think Auburn wins this game. I think Auburn wins this game big. But the way they play this game will solidify where they will be going into the game against Mississippi State. Once again, my name is Stuart V for Venom Sports, and we spit that fire, right? Like, comment, and subscribe. We'll be back later on, man. You all have a good day. And also, by the way, next week, I didn't want to do it this week, but starting next week, we're going to have a series called Crown 'em or Down 'em. Basically, that's going to be where we talk about teams in the top 25 and we crown them. We have this little neutral spot, or we down them. One of my teams right now on that list, on the bubble, is LSU, because I still hadn't seen enough from them. They're the number 5 team in the country, but they still haven't solidified what they need to solidify to be a top 5 team. Once again, like I said before, my name is Stuart V for Venom Sports, and we spit that fire. Like, comment, and subscribe. You all have a good one.